In fact, let's stay with the story. While the deadline to register spaza shops is today, the National Consumer Commission, along with other authorities, have been conducting market monitoring inspections in the Free State and in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's bring in the Acting Commissioner at the NCC, Hardin Ratshisusu. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for your time this afternoon. And Hardin, if you are able to hear me, tell us what you found when you were embarking on these inspections.
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon to the Newzroom Afrika viewers. We have indeed embarked on very intensive inspections this week in KwaZulu-Natal and Free State. And this is part of our program for the year to ensure that businesses comply with the Consumer Protection Act and also sell products that are safe to consumers, and they adhere to basic principles such as ensuring that there are date markings on the products, they display prices, and they do not sell food that has expired or past their best before dates. The challenge, and this is really a concern for us as the National Consumer Commission, is that we keep identifying these problems. Each time we inspect these retailers in many areas. I think we were in Pudadichaba, Friede, Hardin, and surrounding places. And we are finding that suppliers continue to sell expired foods. Some even have refrigeration that is not functional. Prices are not displayed, which in our view is placing a huge risk to consumers out there. So we are taking a very serious stance on this, supported by other authorities, including the South African Police Service, environmental health practitioners, and municipalities in those areas. So this is a significant concern for us at this moment.
And we know that, the two angles of the story, the inspections that the Consumer Commission is conducting and the registration of spaza shops, it all stems from that period over the past few months where we saw so many people lose their lives. We reported it as a result of foodborne illnesses, but there's also the issue of pesticides, Hardin. Are we focusing on the issue of these illegal pesticides that are actually meant for agricultural use?
Indeed, you are right. There are many other concerns that we are finding when we are in those areas, including the safety and upkeep of premises. It's in some cases in quite concerning conditions. And we do have other authorities on the ground in these inspections that are attending to those issues. We have, at least when we were in this area now, we have not picked up issues, at least for now, of those pesticides. It was quite rife in Soweto. We had picked this up also in the Eastern Cape, in the Buffalo City municipality. So this is something that we picked up, but the police in particular are especially looking into this issue and ensuring that those products are not sold to or are not found in those spaces.
Yeah, not in spaza shops and not in homes. How do we balance these two issues, Hardin, insofar as the issue of foodborne illnesses is concerned and putting our communities, particularly children, at risk? Where is the bigger risk here? The issues that you've outlined, leaking and dented cans, no expiry date on foods, versus the pesticide issue?
I think both issues are of concern because the chemicals or pesticides that are being used, as it was reported before, some have been banned and some are for agricultural purposes. which on its own poses a huge risk to human beings in general. So this is a serious risk, and government has identified it as such. The Department of Agriculture is also looking into this to ensure that there are no leakages in the system, that products that are not intended for household use are not found in those areas.
Sorry, Hardin, how do we go about doing that? How do we go about checking households for these kinds of products? And I suppose a follow-up question would be, is there enough education about just how harmful these pesticides are? I mean, clearly leading to deaths in some cases.
You're right. I think there's a concern. Sometimes we've picked up that the consumers or the general population is not aware of the dangers in using these products. So there is definitely a need for awareness. But to stem this, a very sharp enforcement is needed. And as I've said, we work very closely with the police, various authorities, and this is a priority for the South African Police Service. As you know, these products were being sold freely in SASSA pay points, and that has been attended to. That's why we are not seeing a lot of incidents in that respect. So it's a very important issue, and at least from the National Consumer Commission point of view, we would look at it when we are inspecting suppliers or spaza shops or retailers. So when we find that there are those chemicals that are being used, we would then have to take action against those suppliers from the Consumer Protection Act perspective, but also report those suppliers to the police.
Correct. And you haven't touched on the issue of education, getting the message out there that these are the kinds of things we should not have in our households, which is a difficult thing, I suppose, because we do struggle in certain communities, where we might live very closely together. There is a struggle with, for example, cockroaches, maybe rats, and we do need proper solutions to those kinds of things, which poses its own health risks. So how do we balance that out with educating the community versus what the community needs in that instance?
Indeed, I think education is quite important in this case, that the communities are aware of the dangers in using certain products. But also, if you followed this, the Department of Health has also raised an issue that municipalities also have to look after communities, because sometimes in some areas there's no proper refuse removal or collection, which then presents these kinds of problems. And this is what we've picked up, in some areas. But you had asked me earlier also about the other issue around the sale of, expired food themselves. What is the danger, about that? So besides the pesticides, that too is a very big issue, even for environmental health practitioners and municipalities in particular, that there has to be continuous education to consumers, that they have to look at date markings when they buy the products. And if there are no prices, things are not clear, consumers should not be buying those products. But as far as enforcement is concerned, once we pick it up that there are suppliers who are taking advantage of consumers to deal with those issues, to sell those kinds of products, we will then take action from the National Consumer Commission perspective.
Right, and the deadline, as you will know, as the Consumer Commission, is today for spaza shops to register their outlets. In fact, some registration centres, we're being told by our reporters, closes at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Is this an important measure from the view of the NCC? This process of registering businesses, making sure that they are equipped with all of the necessary documentation, and there are certain regulations in place. And I suppose, related to that, those who are struggling, and what I'm hearing from our reporters is that the big issue is title deeds. Spaza shop owners who are trying to register, they don't have the title deeds to enable them to complete that process. If this deadline comes and goes today, I get the sense that a number of spaza shops will not be registered. What does that do for the sector, Hardin?
From our point of view, I think there are certain things that are not negotiable or ought not to be negotiable, particularly compliance with applicable bylaws or any laws that are prescribed on businesses. I think the fact that you are having a long queue now of spaza shops trying to register on the last day and without even proper documentation points to the problem that we face, that we have a lot of spaza shops that are operating without proper paperwork, with no regard to the applicable laws, including the Consumer Protection Act. That's why we do these inspections. We do advocacy. But we are finding that I think if we compromise on compliance with bylaws or all other laws, I think we'll still have serious challenges in our country. For us as the National Consumer Commission, what will this do? This is a very important measure because we will now have up-to-date intelligence on where these spaza shops are. How many are they in a particular area? So that when we are doing our work, we will be able to zoom into specific areas and target areas where we'll have the greatest impact. So I think this registration is quite welcome. We welcome this as the National Consumer Commission. For the first time, we will be able to know how many spaza shops are there in South Africa, where are they located, who are they? Because sometimes consumers raise concerns, they cannot even identify the name of the operation. When we try to do our searches for the names are not found. When we sometimes find people trading in those places, they don't have proper papers, for residency and all of that. So that on its own complicates enforcement, of, say, the National, Consumer Protection Act, but also other laws. So for us, this is quite important, and we encourage spaza shops to stay in those queues, because those that are not registered, in fact, it will be an aggravating factor. This, if we find non-compliance, someone is unregistered, I think they will feel, what enforcement means from a consumer protection point of view.
No, absolutely. There's no overstating just how important the registration process is, and hopefully, Hardin, we've made the process of registering. I'm not saying that we need to make it easy, but certainly doable. Are you getting that sense?
We have seen. We were in Parliament not long ago in the National Council of Provinces, and there was a presentation there from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. A lot of businesses have registered, and that they've now already been mapped. So we know already where compliant businesses are. I think there would be those that would have challenges if they don't have proper documentation, and there are some concerning practices that have been reported where there is fronting, where locals are helping foreign nationals with no proper documentation, but the police will be taking care of those issues. From our point of view, as I have said, and I emphasized this, that with this information, we will be able to provide adequate consumer protection to consumers. We will know where these traders or suppliers or spaza shops are. We will not have to be guessing, going to places trying to find them out. We can geo-map them, and that way we can ensure that there is compliance with our laws in this country.
Certainly. Incredibly important as this deadline looms as well. Hardin Ratshisusu is the Acting Commissioner at the National Consumer Commission. Hardin, thanks very much indeed for your time this afternoon.